He didn't just rule Libya, he owned it. For over 4 decades, Muammar Gaddafi wasn't just a president, he was the system, the law, the fear, and the voice inside every room. You didn't criticize him. You didn't question him. You didn't even joke about him. Because in Gaddafi's Libya, words could cost you your life. He came to power in 1969 in a military coup. No election, no debate, just tanks, guns, and a young officer who believed he was destined to reshape the Arab world. And at first, some people believed him. He talked about justice, about equality, about throwing out Western influence. He nationalized oil and promised to redistribute wealth. For a moment, he looked like a revolutionary hero. But revolutions are loud at the beginning, tyranny is quiet and patient. Within a few years, Gaddafi dismantled political parties, banned opposition, and built a system where loyalty wasn't optional. It was survival. He called his system Jamahiriya, rule by the people. But here's the reality. The people had no power. Committees watched neighborhoods. Informants listened to conversations. Students were publicly executed. Dissidents disappeared. And the message was clear: Gaddafi wasn't leading Libya. He was controlling it. Gaddafi didn't just silence opposition inside Libya, he hunted it outside. If you fled the country and spoke against him, you weren't safe. Libyan dissidents were assassinated across Europe, London, Rome, Athens. His regime was accused of targeting critics abroad, sending a message that exile meant nothing. But that wasn't the worst of it. In the 1980s, Libya became synonymous with global terrorism. His government was linked to bombings, insurgent funding, and armed groups across Africa and the Middle East. The most infamous case? The 1988 Lockerbie bombing, where Pan Am Flight 103 exploded over Scotland, killing 270 people. For years, Libya denied involvement. Sanctions followed. Isolation followed. The economy suffered. But inside Libya, Gaddafi tightened his grip even more. Prisons filled with political prisoners. Torture was reported. Public executions were broadcast as warnings. This wasn't chaos. It was strategy. Fear became the foundation of his power. And the world watched, unsure whether he was a madman, a mastermind, or both. By the early 2000s, something changed. Gaddafi began trying to rebrand himself. He gave up weapons programs. He negotiated with Western governments. Oil deals reopened. Diplomats shook his hand again. Suddenly, the same man once labeled a pariah was meeting world leaders. But inside Libya, very little changed. There were still no real elections, no free press, no independent courts. The security apparatus remained strong. Corruption thrived. Power stayed within a tight circle, mostly his family. His sons were positioned for succession. Wealth accumulated around the elite. Meanwhile, ordinary Libyans struggled despite the country's oil riches. And then came 2011, the Arab Spring. It started with protests, demonstrations demanding reform, accountability, representation. Gaddafi's response? Violence. He called protesters rats. He vowed to cleanse Libya, house by house. Security forces opened fire. Cities turned into battlegrounds. What began as protests became a civil war. And this time, fear wasn't enough. As rebel forces advanced, Gaddafi's control collapsed faster than anyone expected. NATO intervened. Airstrikes weakened his military. His inner circle fractured. Allies vanished. The man who once ruled for 42 years was suddenly hiding. In October 2011, he was captured near his hometown of Sirte. The footage spread across the world. No palace, no uniform, no power. Just a wounded, aging dictator dragged from a drainage pipe. He was beaten, humiliated, shot. And just like that, 4 decades of absolute rule ended in chaos. There was no dramatic trial, no controlled exit, no exile, only violence, the same force that had defined his reign. Some Libyans celebrated. Others feared what would come next. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Removing a dictator is one thing. Building a stable country after decades of centralized power, that's something else entirely. Libya didn't become peaceful overnight. In fact, it descended into instability, factional conflict, and prolonged turmoil. Gaddafi's fall didn't erase his legacy. It exposed it. He built a system that revolved around himself, and when he disappeared, so did the structure holding the country together. That's the paradox of authoritarian rule. It looks strong, until it isn't. And when it collapses hard. Muammar Gaddafi ruled through control, fear, and spectacle. But in the end, the same force he used to dominate Libya, violence, became the final chapter of his story. Power, without accountability, doesn't just corrupt. It eventually consumes.